Hey y'all, this is Robert, and thank you for tuning in to Station Square. And hope everybody's doing well out there and staying safe and, staying healthy. I know we're gonna be getting another heat wave here in LA, which is something that we needed after hurricane, earthquake, whatever we got like last weekend. So today we're going to be chatting with someone who you might have recognized like on TikTok and Instagram. They've made content for mental health, that they've also done videos just discussing, a bunch some topics that we'll actually be discussing for today's interview. So, ladies and gentlemen, um, Xenia, I'm so sorry, I'm like really bad with names.
It's okay. You can call me Zen. Zenya's right. That's actually my name, but people call me Zen. It sounds like a superhero, so I
Okay,
think.
yeah, let's go with Zan.
Yeah. Hi guys.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just get right to the nitty-gritty here. So how has this year been for you so far? Just to start us off, like just to break the
Yeah.
ice a little bit.
Yeah, 2023 was a rough one. Um, Starting off the year, I moved to Harlem, New York. I always lived near New York, so it wasn't a huge culture shock. But I also did get laid off from my job. And so I was one of those many people who didn't have a job and was looking for a job for months on end, which is ridiculous. Um, and I lived with roommates, but I was behind on rent and yeah, that's when my mental health really got a hit. My mental health is is a roller coaster like most for my whole entire life. But last year was like, I mean, well, this year, it feels like last year, but this year it was like a huge dip down just because of no money and just I guess I really had no quote unquote direction. Like I didn't know what I wanted. All I knew was that I needed to pay off rent, and that was just my main focus.
Yeah, I seem to have noticed that the last few years has kind of been insane to put it simply, rather. Because I know a lot of us are kind of like still like going through like I guess the post-pandemic, the aftermath, even though we're kind of I mean, not to say that COVID hasn't really gone away. It's still absolutely it's still around, but it's like we're kind of still adjusting to the new normal or lifestyle of going out and being outside and still have to be conscious with masks and everything. So it's interesting time for sure.
Yeah.
But for this year, yeah, it's kind of been like we're still kind of like at this weird, like sort of middle ground when it comes to coming to terms with this new lifestyle and also dealing with, a lot of issues that have been that we're dealing with mentally and physically and just a lot with life in general
Yeah, I
that
think
I've
uh,
seemed to notice.
yeah, I think the pandemic definitely impacted us greater than most people think. I think we live in a hyper productive world, so the pandemic forced us to stop. And I feel like many people, when they stop, they realize, oh, I've actually never stopped before. And so when we had this whole world pause thing, I think people sat with themselves and are like, oh, I have like some issues I should probably work out, and like, do I actually like my job, and do I actually like my friends, and what do I actually like to do? And so I think we're dealing with the remnants of that. Like that's going to continue to be the thing where we're just like, what does who was I before the world told me who I was?
Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it. It's like really taking the time to sit down and ask yourself, okay, what do I need to work on today? Like, um, it could just be anything. Like, what is something that is part of your personality, what I want to do today. Um, just really self-assess and ask yourself, um, yeah, how can I help somebody or how can I help, um, myself or just, making everybody around you and just being a positive influence for everyone around you. Like you want to be that friend who's like, hey, I'm here,
Yeah.
if you need me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's like, how do you be there for people you care about, and how do you be there for yourself? And is there a way in a world where you can do both, essentially? That would be
totally.
the dream.
Yeah. So growing up in the East Coast, like if we're going to talk about your background for a little bit, how would you say it was like for you growing up?
Yeah.
Like when it
I
comes to childhood? Yeah.
yeah, I grew up in the city. I grew up in the projects, so low income housing. Um, and for me, I actually didn't know there was more to New Jersey than where I lived. And one time my mom and I were driving and I saw cows and farms, and I was like, "Where are we?" And she's like, "New Jersey." And I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea there was more to life than this." So I grew up with I don't have my license now because I never needed it because I always had access to light rail, trains, buses, and everything was just nearby. Like my brother lives in the same city, my dad lives in the same city, and I only just got my passport last year, and I got my mom her passport last year. And I left the country for the first time this June. So like I feel like I'm always getting like a late start just because growing up we didn't have money, a lot of money, and I had an undocumented father. And so a lot of things were limited, and I didn't know that, when you're younger, you just don't know that there's more to life than what you're currently living. So I didn't know that everyone else was like going on trips and stuff until I got older, and people are talking about Disneyland and stuff. And it's like I still have never been. And so I sort of am giving myself and, my mom and my family the opportunity to do things that we never got to do when I was a kid, essentially.
Yeah, because like growing up in the city, it can be scary, but at the same time, it's like you really do learn a lot, draw life experiences. Like here in LA, and then if you're in New York, um, there's definitely like a lot of areas where you can, explore society and explore the world and see how it's like, you know,
Yeah.
growing up in that environment.
Yeah, I in college I met some friends who grew up in the suburbs. And I guess I never thought about the suburbs much outside of like television, like Gilmore Girls and stuff. That was the extent to like my knowledge of the suburbs. And they always found it so fascinating that like I didn't have to drive everywhere, or that like I could be in New York in like 25 minutes. And they're like, "You realize you just went to one state and then came back like so quickly." I'm like, "Oh, I guess I did. I never thought about it that way." But I always like, I feel like especially in like America, the suburbs is like the American dream, like you want the house and the picket fence, and it's like your neighbors and stuff. And I'm sure the reality is different, but that's how TV always painted it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, because something that you see on TV isn't really necessarily the same. Okay, let me rephrase that. I mean, we do have like reality TV and what have you, but um, when you really go out and see the world yourself, it's like what you see on TV isn't really entirely. I mean, I'm not saying that the programs are not any good yeah, definitely by no means, but it's like everyone has different experiences, and when you see something on TV that reflects someone like based on a true story, it's not gonna resonate with everyone, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, because everyone's totally different. Yeah.
yeah, I found that like my suburban friends wanted to move to the city, and
Hmm.
my city friends wanted to like get a house somewhere. And like I was one of those people. And I when I moved to New York City, I sort of realized it's like I'm not like a natural hustler, even though I grew up in that environment. It's like I don't want to constantly be hustling and constantly be on survival mode. Like I want to just experience things for the sake of experiencing things, basically.
Yeah. So growing up, were there like a lot of, because I know we'll kind of get to your, because right now I think you mainly work on graphic design as a creative consultant, so we'll definitely get into that in a little bit, but growing up, was there like a lot of opportunities like when it comes to work and you know getting your name out there?
I think it's similar to most places where it's like about who you know. You need to network and talk to people, which is difficult for me. Like I
Yeah.
don't I'm always home. I'm always at this specific bean bag in my room. So it's just basically how who you know. I my first real job was in high school and I was a teacher's assistant, which is random, a teacher's assistant for 4-year-olds. And I got that job because I was close with my guidance counselor. And then in college, I worked at the TV station in college because they just give you jobs. And I met the director on a field trip, and that's how I got that job. So it's like it's basically networking, and I it's like a love and hate relationship with that. Like I love it's a good thing. It's a good that thing that people are putting you on, but it's also like sometimes I wish my work spoke for me solely, but it's not always like that.
Yeah. And so how would you say, um, with being raised in, New York and everything, how would you say that the environment, on the East Coast, how would you say that it's, because I'm from LA, so I don't really know, like, the entire lifestyle of being in New York and whatnot, but would you say that it's definitely, evolved or changed over the years? Like, especially after the pandemic, at least over the years that you've been residing in it, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
yeah. So I was raised near New York, New Jersey, but
Okay.
um I think now I think more and more people are moving to New York. So more you see more like influencers. And so places like Harlem, now you see these fancy apartment buildings are being made. It was happening on my block, a fancy apartment building that no one who are originally from Harlem can afford. Um, and Brooklyn is like the hot spot. I hate traveling to Brooklyn. It's just such a headache getting to Brooklyn. It's so big and everything is in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is very gentrified. Um, and sometimes I wish people would explore more. Like I love Harlem. I love the culture and the food. And I feel like people always just stick to like Soho and to Brooklyn. And it's like Queens has good food too. I don't know. It's changed with there's definitely more people. I mean, there's always been a lot of people, but there's more people coming from different states. And I think one of the issues is that for me is that they glamorize New York. They have like Sex in the City New York in their head, but it's like that's that's people with money. That's their experience in New York. New York is different when you're not wealthy, right? You got to struggle a little more. You face more rats. That's like the reality.
Um, so being a graphic designer and creative consultant, so you've been kind of doing this for over 2 years, give or take?
So it's so funny. I feel like I've gotten so many different titles throughout the years. But yes, it's been about 2 years. I think so. Graphic designer and creative consultant. Um, I've been doing less of that. Well, less of that freelance. I started off with my friends. I had a lot of musician friends, and I don't know how that happened because I cannot sing for the life of me, but for some reason I surrounded myself with people like that. And so they would need like album covers and lyric videos and help with music videos. And so I would come in, I had a camera and a lot of ideas and the time, and I did it. And that's how I got to practice a lot with editing and stuff, just by volunteering myself to do things for free. Unfortunately, but it was fun and tiring. And I filmed my friend's lyric video. It's on YouTube. Her name is Millie Diaz. The song is called Pull Up. And the lyric video has like over 20K views, which is really good. And that's the most views my any video I've edited has gotten before. So that was really cool. And that was all done in our small Harlem apartment. It was at night on a weekday. It was we didn't have an AC in the living room. And I was in my nightgown and bonnet filming it. And it's just so cool to see what you can make with little. And then I would help friends like storyboard ideas on my iPad. And then I got a job that I have now, working for a midwifery clinic. So midwives helping pregnant people. I'm a creative marketing associate. That's a big fancy word for saying, I run their social media, make their graphics, make their ads, film patients sharing their story, their pregnancy stories. And I really like it. I switched over to more passion driven stuff, because before I really do like music, but that's not my main passion. So I still wanted to story tell, just with more social issues. And so this job that I have now currently gives me that opportunity.
Man, that is really nice.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's um a really great experience for you in general?
Yes. Yes. I'm very lucky. I get to work with mostly women and I get to learn a lot. I don't have kids. And so I'm the youngest, so I never really dealt with children other than my teacher's assistant job in high school. So I'm learning so much about the maternal care system in America, and also still using what I'm good at and what I like, um, which is storytelling. And it's nice. I learned that one of the parts I like is sitting down and having a conversation with people. And so I'm working on my own projects as well. As you said in the beginning, I'm making content and I'm going to begin to put more effort. One of the hard things is consistency. Um, but I think the people that engage with my content is motivating me to be more consistent.
Right on, man. Right on.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like even at a young age, you were just doing all this really fun, imagination stuff, and now you're carrying it over to, your graphic design and what you're doing as an adult.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I think when we get older, we tend to lose that imagination and
Yeah.
creativity, and we tend to lose the hobbies we had as a kid. But I think hobbies are having a comeback. Hobbies are coming back. Doing things that bring you joy is coming back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And let me see. So I know that, and it's also true because like we kind of have big imaginations and we're kind of kids who never really grew up, if I'm going to be honest. And you can see it in our work that we do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's such a good thing. I think maybe we're so I think most people are so hard on their child self, but children
Yeah,
are so brave and fearless, and
yeah,
they tend to be pretty selfless. And so, I would just say like what did you like to do before you were told what to do, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was through that you also started dabbling into social media content creation and video editing.
Yeah, so I found so I have ADHD, depression, and anxiety. And I'm still learning about ADHD more and more, but this past year when I was in Harlem and no job, I was really, really depressed. And whenever I was really, really sad, I would make something. Like even at my lowest, I still create something. And I started posting on TikTok about just, you know, what I'm going through emotionally and being really honest. And people have been very positive, which was very shocking to me. Because I didn't, not because I thought I was going to get negative feedback, but because I thought I was going to get any feedback, honestly. And so people would comment thanking me. People would send me long messages saying hi. Like I got a message from the Caribbean, and this person was like, "Hi, it's so nice to see someone so vulnerable. Where I come from, everyone is cold," and I just, I guess my lived experience was more impactful than I thought it was, and sometimes, I guess I thought it's so easy to feel like you're alone with all of your mental health issues and everything you're going through. So I guess by me speaking up and sharing my piece, people were like, "Oh, I'm not as alone as I thought I was." Yeah.
Right. Um, I mean, that just is also make that's a part of your brand because you're just being you and being vulnerable and being real with people, which is definitely starting to have more of a prominence, especially over the last few years. Because I know, like I said, it's been a rough time for everybody, no matter who it is,
Yeah, I agree. I think
especially after
unfortunately,
2020.
especially after 2020. Yeah, I graduated college in 2020. I didn't get a graduation. I'm thinking of
Man.
going back to get my master's in psychology, just because my lived experience is great and it's impactful and I see what it's doing, but I also just want to have that credibility, and education behind me. Um, I think unfortunately, especially on the internet, it's rare to see someone vulnerable, especially on Instagram. Instagram feels very plastic to me. It feels very curated. So whenever I posted a video on Instagram that I wouldn't normally post on Instagram, I would post it on TikTok. I posted a video, spend the day with me and ADHD and depression. And I got such a huge feedback on Instagram. Like it surprised me. I was so shocked and people started following me. I was like, whoa, this is something I wasn't gonna post it on Instagram either, but like I just like, you know what? Screw it. Like someone's gonna see it, someone's gonna like it, and if someone doesn't, it wasn't for them. And I guess being because it was so vulnerable and so raw and honest, it was so different from everything else you see on Instagram. You see everyone with like the cars and the house and the money and the partner, which is all great and wonderful and should be celebrated, but so rarely do people speak up about things that they feel like they're missing or just flaws in themselves, I guess, if we want to call it flaws.
Yeah. So specifically for mental health, like I know you mentioned that was also like you mentioned ADHD, depression, and anxiety. So I definitely feel like having the platform to just be raw and honest with people is totally like, it feels therapeutic in a way. It really does.
It really, really does. And it's like, one of the things I struggle with is like loneliness. I
Mhm.
think these emotions are so big that they could feel all consuming and they can be very isolating. And so when I create content and put it out there, it's like I'm sort of not just reminding everyone else, but I'm reminding myself that actually you're not as alone as you feel. Like your emotions are shared. Other people are feeling this. You're not by yourself. And it is very therapeutic, and also like the process of it, like making it, storyboard, writing the script, recording it, editing it. It's like I'm doing something that I enjoy for people that get it. And it's like you're creating your own little community.
Yeah. And how is that going for you so far? Just out of curiosity.
The community aspect,
Yeah.
um, I think it's going good. I feel like whenever I talk about I made a video that went viral recently that shocked me. um Talking about how like, oh, my therapist, told me to do something and I did the opposite. Oops. And everyone was just like, I get it, blah blah blah. Therapists started following me and commenting and be like, it'll get better, it's okay. It's sort of just like a space of just positivity that I'm just not used to. It's like all these strangers are so kind. It's like, and that's sometimes it's like, wow, sometimes strangers aren't here to hurt you. Sometimes strangers are here to help you, which is cool.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that when it comes to having a social media presence, there's a lot of pros and cons. So, what are your like 2 cents on, having a presence or just being a social media influencer, if that's the right word term?
So I wouldn't say I'm an influencer because I definitely don't get paid by any brand or anything. But
Okay.
I would say content creator. But my stance on social media, the cons are obvious. I think everyone knows the cons. You're putting yourself. It's basically like it feels like you're standing on a stage. When I went viral, it was kind of scary for me. Because I have a hard time being perceived, which is funny because I'm a content creator and that's what you're doing. But I always forget that more than like 100 people can see you. And so when that video got like over like 20K, I actually cried a little just because I was like, "Oh my God, this is overwhelming. So many people are looking at me, so many people are talking to me." And there's always when you're putting yourself out there for people to hear you, um, you're also putting yourself out there for hate, and that really could get in your head. I fortunately haven't experienced that yet, and I'm very lucky, and I think it's because I'm still like claiming my space um on the internet. I haven't touched that crowd yet, but the pros is that you'll find more people like you. I was talking to my friend about how, sometimes you're in a crowded room and you still feel alone. And it's because I feel like most people when they go into spaces, they put on this character or like a mask, and like suddenly you have to be this charismatic person who knows how to talk, who knows what to say, and that's not reality. In reality, I'm awkward and I stutter and I space out and I don't know a lot of things and that's okay to admit. And so when you put yourself in these spaces putting your false self first, it's no wonder you still feel alone because all these people that you're trying to connect with are connecting with this fake version of you and not your real you. And so when you're putting your true self out there, it's like the pros out there on the internet. The pros is that the people who like you really like you and they'll be in your community and they're like-minded. The cons is when people don't like you, they really don't like you. So it's like a 50-50 chance. I'm like anticipating a moment where my video lands on someone's For You page that doesn't like me.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
would be pretty unpredictable.
Yes, very much so. It's very unpredictable. And also, it's like you're not going to please everyone, and you may say some words wrong. And also, they may interpret it wrong. It's just so many things could go wrong. So, I understand when some people like don't post, like, that's totally fine. Or they're just a silent follower. That's totally fine. Like, it's scary.
Yeah, it really is. Um, so for the video editing, um, would you say that it's also kind of like, do you focus more like do you also how can I say this? So for your services, I know with content creation that's kind of really been taken off, but for video editing, like would you say that it's also kind of starting to um that you're starting to find your footing with video editing, or is it still kind of like hmm, I know it's still kind of like something that's, you're it's a learning process, would you say?
Yeah.
How would you say it?
It is a
How would
learning
you describe
process. I'm always learning something new. I think
it? Yeah.
now I'm more specific and now I know what I want to do more. Um, and so I used to, do music videos and stuff, and that was great and fun, but I'm focusing more on stuff for me. And I'm also focusing on editing stuff for like, my 9 to 5 job at the midwifery clinic, like focusing on people's lives and just like stuff that's would make people uncomfortable, I guess. Like mental health is something that would make many people uncomfortable, unfortunately. And talking about the realities of like maternity care is uncomfortable. And I'm interviewing people about homelessness in the city that I'm from and the housing crisis. And that would make a lot of people uncomfortable too. So just like I'm really interested in capturing people's realities as best as I can and how as comfortable as they are with that. So I think now I'm more specific with what I edit.
Okay. Because I know interviewing people and then knowing what specifically to talk about, like having topics or discussions and you know t engaging with an audience, um it can be pretty tricky. Like it's a lot easier said than done, that's for sure.
Yeah, like it takes a lot of research, a
Mhm.
lot of it's basically like you are definitely lurking on their social media platforms. And
Pretty
also
much.
like how do you like respectfully be nosy essentially? Like how do you respectfully ask questions but not push the button too much where they like start pulling back? And also how do you
Yeah.
get these people to trust you because they're
Yeah.
sharing their background and their story. They're not going to just share it with anyone. And a lot of people
Yeah.
aren't comfortable with talking about themselves. So, how do you get them to talk about themselves? It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. But you're doing a good job.
Thanks. So, what have you been picking up? Like any hobbies that you've been dabbling into as of
Yeah,
late?
I've been picking up in some hobbies. I guess they're not cool as most people say, but like I've been really into like Legos and puzzles, and I've been getting back into reading. I used to be such a big bookworm when I was younger, but I've learned, not just through my own lived experience, but by professionals that ADHD, it's hard to do things you don't want to do, but it's also hard to do things that you do want to do. So it's like I really want to read. So I have to actively put myself in a position where I can't do anything else but read, even though I want to do it. It's interesting.
Well, I'm the same way, trust me.
Yeah, it's actually so
Yeah.
annoying.
Um, Cats. I don't know, just random kind
Yeah.
of. Yeah, so let's talk about cats. Like,
Yeah. I love
um,
cats. I always said if I wasn't, how some people are like, oh, they're a golden retriever and I'm a black cat. I'm a cat, but I'm an orange cat. I grew up with a family cat. His name is Rocky. He's orange. He looks like Garfield and he's just as fat. And we basically shared a room. My bed was our bed. He slept on the right side. I slept on the left side. And I was always the big spoon. And even though I was kind of allergic, we still shared an entire room together. And I think he had separation anxiety because every time I closed the door, he would freak out if he wasn't on the other side. He's like, I need to be in my room. I love him.
so that's your favorite. Those are your favorite cats in general?
Um, I think I'm used to orange cats, but I don't want to limit myself to an orange cat.
Yeah.
I like all cats. My parents are divorced, So my mom has Rocky and my dad has a black cat, and I named him Salem. And he's the opposite. He's younger and he's long and slinky. He's so skinny. And he's also a lap cat. Rocky will not sit on you. I put him on my lap and he acts like I'm made out of glass and he like slowly removes himself from my lap. But Salem, he'll just lay on top of you. He doesn't care. He thinks you're a pillow. So I say I'm just a cat lover. I love dogs, but cats are just easier.
Right.
Yeah. What do you,
So,
what animal do
I'm
you
sorry.
like actually?
I like dogs.
Yeah. That's okay.
I don't
Most
like
people.
them. Actually, you know what? I take it back because I do have like dogs that just bark around my neighborhood, so it just kind of makes me like, I used to really like dogs, but now I'm like,
They're loud.
I guess I'm more of a cat. They are, so I guess I'm more of a cat person because they can just walk around my backyard and just sleep there.
Yeah.
They don't make much noise.
Cats are more
They fine.
independent. Like
Yeah,
dogs need us more. We domesticated them so much that they just need us more and
yeah.
they'll bark in the early mornings and you have to wake up and walk them. And it's just like it doesn't go with my lifestyle of staying inside.
We actually been having like a lot of lizards in our
Ooh.
backyard as of late. We always had them because we're like closer to the mountains here in the valley in
That's cool.
California, so it is what it is. Coyotes, we don't really get like a lot of them, but yeah, I wouldn't run into one.
Yeah.
If we're gonna talk about animals, I used to have like a pet goldfish or not, and I think a bird, but I think that's it. That's my pet history. Um, so, what's something that you want to share? Like anything that you want to plug, your social media, upcoming projects, last bit of advice?
Yeah. So for social media, my TikTok is Zen underscore Lydia, XEN underscore LYDIA. My Instagram is Xenia underscore Lydia, XENIA underscore LYDIA. I'm going to be posting more content and I'm also working on a project about housing and homelessness. I won't share too much because it's just the beginning, but I'm excited about that. And any last piece of advice, I always say give yourself a chance. If you're currently at your lowest right now, just know if you could be at your lowest, you could be at your highest. And I feel like we give so many people chances, but not ourselves. Give yourself a chance to catch up. That's my advice.
Yeah, what you said. So, I don't have anything else to say. Thank you so much for stopping by, and thank you for watching. And stay tuned next time on Station Square. Until then, hope everybody stays safe. Um, stay productive and keep on trucking on. And this is Robert Jackson signing out. Sayonara.